57 kilometers from the border between northern Ethiopia and Eritrea, hundreds of tents and huts dot the sparse vegetation. Shimelba camp has become home to 8,500 asylum seekers who've crossed the border in search of safety. Around 250 Eritreans arrive in the camp each month, following the border war that broke out between Eritrea and Ethiopia in May 2000. Tesfa Ledit and his young family arrived in the camp a few months ago. His story is typical. He was arrested, accused of collaborating with anti-government forces. He escaped from captivity while doing forced labor road building and fled for his life.
I walked for 4 days. I went back to Senefe, where I used to live, but it wasn't safe to go to my house. I called my wife and told her to bring the children and whatever money she could get hold of. We met up, and together we set off to come here, traveling by night.
Like Tesfa's family, most of the people here have been moved from a makeshift site much closer to the border with Eritrea. They're transferred by bus to the new camp that's being established by UNHCR at Shimelba. Blankets and kitchen materials are distributed before the refugees are allocated to where they'll have to make their homes. Conditions are tough in Shimelba, but it's an improvement on the old camp. Further from the border, there's greater security and more space to provide facilities like a health clinic and school. But on the downside, the camp is isolated and prone to extremes of heat. The first water borehole failed and a new water supply has to be dug. In the meantime, the women queue for hours, waiting to collect the water they need. Tesfa's wife Enadet has just had a new baby. Kisanat is just 4 weeks old. She was born in the camp, and the family are having to get used to managing without the help from parents they'd have had back home in Eritrea. For Enadet, it's exhausting looking after 2 young children as well as her new baby. Today they're on the way to the camp's health clinic, where Kisanat will receive her first vaccinations. The extremes of climate in Shimelba are hard to bear for the highland Eritreans. As always, children are particularly vulnerable. Malaria is common, but as well as physical illness, the frustrations of camp life can lead to stress and depression. Despite the day-to-day difficulties, Enadet is optimistic for the future. She's lived in camps for over a year now, and is looking forward to the day when she'll be able to return to the comforts of home in Eritrea.
I see a bright future ahead. We've survived this far, at least we're alive. And if we can overcome these troubles, I believe there's a bright future ahead of us.
But for this young family, the days pass slowly. And until a long-term solution is found to the border conflict, they must put their plans for the future on hold.
The Administration for Refugee and Returning Affairs opens its 3rd camp in Tigray region for Eritrean refugees. Here again is Betelem Taye for the details.
As part of the effort to protect and assist the seemingly never-ending inflow of refugees from Eritrea, the Administration for Refugee and Returned Affairs (ARRA), in close collaboration with the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees (UNHCR), today opened the 3rd refugee camp in the Tigray National Regional States. This morning, the first convoy moved a total of 356 refugees from the screening center at Ndabaguna near Shire all the way to Adi Harush, located 82 kilometers from Shire. 80% of the first group is composed of mainly young people between the ages of 21 and 34. They are part of predominantly young Eritreans arriving at a monthly average rate of nearly 2,000 and who invariably tells to registration officers on the ground that they cross the border to avoid excessive repression, gross human rights violations and forced conscription into the army. At the moment, the country hosts more than 49,000 Eritrean refugees in 4 refugee camps in Tigray and Afar regions. There are 2 refugee camps in Tigray region accommodating a total of 30,000 refugees. Shimelba camp was opened way back in 2004 and Mayaini was established in 2008. In addition to those staying in Tigray region, some 19,000 ethnic Afar Eritrean refugees are enjoying international protection in the Afar National Regional State. Ayale Awaka, Deputy Director of the ARRA, said, as long as persecution and systematic rights abuse continue to be the way of life in Eritrea, we will continue to receive more and more refugees and to open more and more camps in Tigray and Afar regions to accommodate them. He called for more international support in spirit of international burden sharing. Before departing from the screening center, the refugees were provided with an assortment of non-food items, including jerry cans, sleeping mats, plastic sheeting and sanitary materials. Once in the camp, they will all be sheltered in the reception center for a maximum of 3 days until they are provided with tents. Some of the vulnerable, such as the girls, the elderly and the children, will be provided with shelters made of stones and mud bricks. The refugees will be provided with cooked food while in the reception center. The new camp was established on a plot at Adi Harush, which was generously made available by the local authorities in Alamti Warda of Northwestern Zone.